Welcome to Wealth Coffee Chats, folks, for your daily live updates. Get the most out of today's episode by participating in the chat. Make sure you ask some questions, be part of the conversation, have a bit of fun, grab a coffee or a tea, take some notes, and get ready to start your day, folks. Quick few housekeeping rules, though. No spamming, no advertising or self-promotion in the chat. That's not on. Be kind and respectful to everyone when participating. And most of all, have a good time. Real estate investing can be your biggest asset. It also can be your most expensive asset when it comes to getting it right or getting it wrong, folks. It can be time-consuming, stressful, and that's why here at Positive, we have what's called a 6-star team, a full-service team that provides integrated wealth and property investing solutions and services simply designed to help you progress towards your goal of passive income through your property portfolio, folks. Make sure you check out our other podcasts on the Positive Mentor Network. Not only is there Wealth Coffee Chats, there's the Urban Property Investor. Drops every Wednesday with straight talking investing strategies and lessons with Sam Saggers. Property Investor Tales. This is where our clients, you guys, share real life stories from property investing, hosted by some of our advisors and strategists. And that's done every fortnight, dropping every Monday. Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, folks, that debriefs the week that was in the world of finance and property, hosted by yours truly, Jason Witten and Andy Fenton on Fridays. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chats. Marvellous Monday. Hope you're well, folks, wherever you are. If you think it's Get Rich Quick, you're in the wrong place. This is the wrong podcast. This is the wrong live for you. Welcome to another Wealth Coffee Chat. Hope you're all awesome and well.
Good morning, everybody. Today's Wealth Coffee Chat comes from a slightly different location. I'm back in Melbourne with the Exit Plan event that's going over this weekend. As always, I love to start with a finance joke, a bit of joy to start the day. So today's joke is, why did the mortgage lender go out of business? It was due to lack of interest. So some exciting news this week. The RBA did meet on Tuesday, and they, to no surprise, they left the interest rates on hold again. Some good news out of that is that inflation has come down to 2.8% for the quarter. So it's now starting to creep into within the range of the RBA. The great thing about the information that's come out of the meeting was that the RBA are currently in a neutral stance, meaning that in the past meetings, they've come out with some suggestion that potentially an interest rate increase could have happened as the inflation rate was still too high. But that obviously has come down, not enough for them to move towards dropping interest rates in the near future, and there will unlikely be an interest rate drop over the Christmas period. So we're actually looking at potentially the first interest rate drops coming in February 2025. So some of the banks have come back and adjusted their predictions for how many interest rate drops next year and when it will start. All the major banks, ANZ, CBA, NAB and Westpac, agree that they think the first interest rate cuts will come in February. And the interest rates drops will vary between 3 interest rate cuts to 5 interest rate cuts. So anywhere between 0.75% and 1.25%. So that's obviously some great news on the interest rate front coming next year. The other thing that lenders or banks have been talking about, especially with APRA, is the interest rate buffers. Now, APRA have imposed a guideline. So APRA has imposed a mandate on all new loans with an interest rate buffer of 3%, meaning that even though you're looking at a loan of a loan with an interest rate of say 6%, the loan is actually assessed on an interest rate of 3%. Now that is quite a big buffer, which means that that dramatically affects how much you can actually borrow. So the banks are going back and the conversations are obviously around first home buyers at this time, and seeing if there is some flexibility in there for first home buyers. Lenders have been able to talk to APRA in regards to refinancing and using a lower buffer. They've been able to use a 1% buffer for refinances, hence the process to refinance a home loan has become a lot easier, even though HEMS has increased. So that most likely would have offset the interest rate buffer that APRA were getting the lenders to implement. What I will say is that if you are having thoughts in regards to any of in regards to rates on any of your loans at the moment, reach out to your lender and your broker and have a conversation. Even though we've been talking about interest rate cuts, it does not mean you can't have a conversation with your existing lender. If you've had one in the past 6 months, they may not move. But I think in this situation, if you don't ask, then you won't know. And the worst answer that you could get is a no, which means you're exactly where you are. But it would also be interesting to see where you sit in regards to all the other lenders out there in the marketplace. So definitely have a conversation with your lender and your broker. Now, we also saw Victoria provide some temporary stamp duty concessions for new property. And it would be interesting to see if the other states will offer something similar in 2025. Stamp duty has been, there has been a lot of talk around stamp duties and its effectiveness and it creating hurdles in regards to refinancing or having clients be able to move their properties between entities. So let's see what 2025 will offer in regards to the stamp duty concession. The last thing I actually wanted to have a chat about, and we were talking about this on mentoring on Monday night, is that the tax office is becoming more tech savvy and they're gathering a lot more information from a lot of different areas. And there may be a time in the near future where the tax returns no longer need to be lodged and the assessments are all completed digitally, which means that the ATO will gather all the information it needs from your bank statements, from your accountants, have that information live and assessed. So it had me thinking whether the banks would go down that particular path. And if it does, what is the actual impact? Now, one of the hurdles that we have to overcome as a broker is that we are required, especially for residential loans, we are required to review your living expenses, meaning we have to go through. Now, we've got apps that will be able to assess that, but there are a lot of discretionary expenses that can be removed in order to provide a more complete assessment of your current situation. Now, if that isn't a conversation that you can have between yourself and your broker, and it is handed back to the lender, and it's up to their discretion on what they'll use and what they won't use. That means there is no longer a situation where you're able just to go look for a property and then go to your broker and say, I need to, can you help me organize the finance for this property? You will actually need to look at being able to review your living expenses, understand where it's at, and if it's at a level where you're comfortable enough to proceed with an application with the banks. This means that a lot more preparation work needs to be done. And I think for me, the feeling is that lending will become more of a strategy type of meeting, especially when you first sit down with your finance broker, than it will be in terms of just getting the transaction done. If we have to prepare for living expenses and we have to do that 3 months in advance, you do want to work with somebody who's going to be able to give you the feedback that you need to make the adjustments so that you can put yourself in the best position. But you can imagine restricting your spending for 3 months and then going for pre-approval and then having to continue that restricted spending up until the loan gets approved. Now, we know that there are a lot of mortgage holders out there who will make the adjustments on their loan repayments based on their living situations. What that means is that if required, there are discretionary expenses that will be reduced so that mortgage holders can meet their repayments. Now, I've read some news articles where, there were people saying that families were missing meals in order to ensure that their mortgage repayments are met. And I can understand that there are many Australians who are probably in that situation at the moment. If that's the case, what I would say is reach out to your broker or your lender and have a chat with them, because if you're missing meals, then you're definitely in a situation where somebody needs to reassess your loan and give you some relief in regards to that. But going back to the point I was originally trying to make is that the banks now want to be able to see that you can restrict your spending, as opposed to understanding that when you review people's living expenses, there are discretionary expenses that are currently being used at the moment, and giving the clients the benefit of the doubt that they will be able to sacrifice that spending in order to make mortgage repayments, even as interest rates are increasing. How do you play with buffers, and how do you play with living expense adjustments now that the prediction is interest rates are going to come down? So these are a few things that I think the mortgage industry and banks and lenders are going to be looking at over the next year, and I do hope that they will make the process easier for both brokers and clients, and not feel like lenders are asking for everything in regards to the client's situation before being able to make a decision, and giving some of that decision making back to the clients to give them the responsibility of ensuring that the loan repayments are being made and met on time, and that they'll reach out when they're in financial trouble. So that's our Worth Coffee chat for this morning, coming from a somewhat sunny Melbourne day. I wish everybody a wonderful Friday, an amazing weekend, and I will catch up. Well, I'll catch up with you guys all next week. Tim, who's taking so long to make decisions? Are you talking about the Reserve Bank, or just lenders in general? Why they take? You know what, Tim? That's the $1 million question. You would think with all the technology at this time, the loan processing. So the process to apply for a loan would be a lot quicker. Unfortunately, I don't have that answer. When we would deal with banks, we have to gather information we have to personally gather information, put it all together, have the client submit. I mean, these days it's slightly faster because we can get DocuSign on loan applications. ID can get verified digitally, so that speeds it up a little bit. Once it gets to assessor, what I've noticed is that it goes through a few different stages, and depending on how complex the deal is. Now, if it's pretty straightforward, there's a pre-assessment, a credit assessor looks at it, valuations get ordered at the time of conditional approval. Your broker potentially could speed that up and order the valuation up front and have that as part of the assessment. What I do know is when it's complex, not all assessors have the ability to look at the loan the way it needs to be looked at, and also some lenders require certain type of loans to be sent further up the chain to let's say a senior credit assessor to make the final sign off. So there in that process there's at least 3 teams that actually have to look at it before it gets approved. My gut feel is that a lot of it is still done quite manually, and so as I was talking to before, how do we get the balance between using technology and speeding up the process, but not assessing, I suppose, not using your guideline to assess clients' living situations or their living expenses, which in some regards I feel that HEMS does that. HEMS kind of says that if you have X amount of people in your family and you're earning X amount of income, then this is how much your living expenses should be. And I know many clients who live below HEMS, and I have to explain that to the banks about why that's possible. These are the clients who have paid off their home loan in 5 to 7 years. They're starting their investment journey, and it's almost like getting penalized because you're efficient with your money. And it varies from banks to banks. The other thing I will say, Tim, is that sometimes banks have specials when it comes to home loans and interest rates, products and interest rates. And what happens there is that everybody in the mortgage industry sends their loan applications to that lender, and they just don't have the capacity. I've worked with lenders where they've been upfront and said, for our self-employed clients, it is going to take 4 weeks to pick up the application, to even look at it. And that, I suppose, in this day and age, with everything that we have at our disposal, it boggles my mind why a lender can take up to a month to pick up a file. We're not talking about assessing it, just to receive it in their queue. to be able to move it along in that process. So yeah, I do think there's probably a lot of factors that do play a part in regards to why banks are taking a lot longer to approve loans. Thanks for your question, Tim. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, mate. Everybody else, I will look forward to catching up with you next week. Have a great day.
Episode of Wealth Coffee Chat, folks. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you never miss a thing when we go live. Improve your portfolio and investing game, folks, with Wealth Coffee Chats live every morning at 8:10 each weekday. Make sure you join us. Previous episodes are also available wherever you get your podcasts, folks, as well as our other podcasts from the 6 Star team here at positivementor.com.au.